My girlfriend announced she was pregnant and said, "Now you are trapped with me forever." I replied, "Let us celebrate with a doctor's appointment together." She suddenly got defensive. "That is not necessary." The fake pregnancy test I found in her drawer 3 days later confirmed everything. I am John, 29 years old, and until last Thursday night, I thought I was in a great relationship with Emma. We had been together for about 11 months, meeting through mutual friends at a backyard barbecue, the previous summer. We hit it off instantly, and things, looking back now, moved with alarming speed. She moved into my apartment, which I leased and owned. Around the 6-month mark, my name was the only one on any document, a detail I had initially felt a strange pride in. It was a subtle red flag I missed, her eagerness to consolidate our lives so quickly. At the time, I viewed it through a romantic lens. She was committed. Now, I see it as tactical positioning. Things had been genuinely good for a while, or at least I was successfully convincing myself they were. However, over the past few months, the atmosphere had shifted. Emma, 27, had been dropping increasingly frequent and heavy hints about our future and the expectation of commitment. Whenever we walked past a jewelry store, her voice would drop to a suggestive whisper about engagement rings. She would ask loaded questions about whether I saw myself as a father soon, or casually mention her friends getting married and buying houses. I am not opposed to commitment, far from it. I just believe in a timeline that makes sense. 11 months is a decent chunk of time, but it is certainly not, "Let us get married tomorrow," territory for me. I am the kind of person who needs to be absolutely sure before making a life-altering decision. This guarded certainty, however, made me a target for someone willing to force the issue. My parents' divorce, which began when I was 14, was a drawn-out, painful public spectacle that tore our family apart for years. I promised myself I would never rush into something that important, that I would protect myself from that kind of avoidable destruction. Last Thursday night, Emma came home from work radiating a strange mix of fidgety excitement and nervousness. The air in my living room felt thick and humid despite the air conditioning. She asked me to sit down on the sofa, assuring me she had something monumentally important to share. The build-up was high drama. "Babe," she began, her eyes sparkling, "I have something to tell you." I watched her, my internal sensors immediately going on high alert. Something felt immediately wrong. She pulled a pregnancy test from behind her back with a flourish, holding it out like a trophy. 2 unmistakable pink lines. "Positive. I am pregnant," she announced, the words vibrating with forced joy. "We are having a baby." My stomach dropped, sinking into a cold knot. It was not because I did not want children someday. I absolutely did. But the timing, the suddenness, and the context felt completely off. We had been careful. Borderline paranoid, in fact. I am vigilant about protection, because I watched my older brother get ensnared in a nightmare custody situation with his ex. He has been paying child support for 8 years for a kid she barely lets him see. That experience had made me hyper, aware of the legal and emotional traps that exist in the absence of absolute certainty. Before I could even fully process the news, The words that would trigger every single alarm bell in my head tumbled out of her mouth. "Now you are trapped with me forever." She laughed when she said it, attempting to play it off as a joke. But her eyes were not laughing. They were pinned on my face, watchful and calculating, waiting for my reaction, like a scientist observing a critical experiment. I kept my expression neutral, years of playing high-stakes poker with my college friends finally paying dividends. "Wow," I said carefully, making sure my tone was measured. "This is big news. We should celebrate." Her face instantly brightened. "Really? You are happy?" "I mean, it is unexpected," I continued, choosing my words meticulously. "But if this is happening, let us do this right. Let us make a doctor's appointment together. We need to get you started on prenatal vitamins, figure out the exact timeline, and do all that responsible parent stuff." The change in her expression was instantaneous and jarring. The excited glow dimmed like a faulty light bulb. Something cold and calculating, something that looked terrifyingly like panic, flickered behind her eyes. "Oh," she stammered. "That is not necessary right now. It is too early. They will not even see you until like 8 weeks. How far along do you think you are?" "I do not know," she replied quickly. "Maybe 6 weeks. But seriously, there is no rush. The test is positive. That is all we need to know for now. I would still feel better if we got it confirmed by a professional." I pushed gently. "A blood test, the works. Make sure everything is healthy. My cousin had an ectopic pregnancy that could have been serious if she had not caught it early." Her voice sharpened, laced with a sudden, desperate anger. "Why do you not trust me? I am telling you I am pregnant. The test is right there. Why do you need a doctor to validate it?" "It is not about trust, Emma," I countered, my own voice remaining low and steady. "It is about being responsible. This is a huge deal. We should do it properly." She crossed her arms tightly over her chest. "You are being controlling. This is my body. I will go to the doctor when I am ready." I did not press the issue further that night. But I did not sleep, either. Something was fundamentally wrong, and I knew I had to figure out what. My gut, conditioned by years of avoiding traps, was screaming at me. The refusal to see a doctor had cracked the relationship wide open, replacing shock with a cold, analytical need for truth. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room, replaying the sequence. The flourish of the test, the calculating eyes, and the chilling phrase about being trapped. That was not a joke. That was a mission statement. Over the next 3 days, I became an involuntary investigator in my own home. My professional life, which demands high levels of vigilance and attention to detail, was nothing compared to the scrutiny I applied to Emma. I paid attention to subtle details I would have normally overlooked, compiling an invisible checklist of expected pregnancy behavior versus her reality. First, the physical signs. No morning sickness. I know it does not happen to everyone, but she was waking up bright, energetic, and perfectly willing to eat her usual oatmeal. No fatigue. She was out late with friends on Friday night, returning around midnight, claiming she felt great. I watched her stretch in the mornings, noting the lack of tenderness or sensitivity she should have been experiencing. More critically, there were no food aversions or cravings. Everything was business as usual. Then there was the wine. Emma loves her nightly glass of Pinot Noir. Not a whole bottle. Just one glass while we watch a show. When a woman is 6 weeks pregnant, even one glass is usually off limits. I watched as she poured one on Friday and another on Saturday. I brought it up casually on the second night. Hey, maybe we should switch to sparkling water for a while. You know, since you are pregnant. She waved her hand dismissively, not even looking up from her phone. One glass will not hurt, John. European women drink wine all through pregnancy. It is fine. That is not how that works. I thought, though I did not say it. I am not a doctor, but I am also not an idiot. Her immediate, unconcerned dismissal felt like another heavy drop of suspicion, settling into the knot in my stomach. A genuinely pregnant woman, especially one so desperate for commitment, would usually be hyper vigilant about protecting the baby. Emma was treating the pregnancy like a minor inconvenience. Day 2, she went to the bathroom, and I noticed she did not even glance at the positive test she had left on the dresser. The test that supposedly represented the biggest change in our lives. If I thought I was carrying our baby, I would be looking at that thing constantly, searching online for symptoms, tracking every minor flutter. Emma seemed completely unconcerned with any actual pregnancy-related behavior, behaving more like a distant stage manager than the star of the show. By the morning of day 3, I could not shake the feeling that I was being played. The uncertainty was unbearable. When she announced she was meeting friends for brunch, I knew what I had to do. I felt like garbage for the violation of privacy. I was about to commit, but the potential legal and emotional nightmare I was trying to prevent eclipsed my guilt. I was protecting myself from the kind of destructive entanglement my brother was still fighting. The second the door closed behind her, I went straight to her nightstand drawer. It was an immediate, horrible plunge into her private space. My hands were shaking slightly. I pulled out a handful of scarves and jewelry, searching methodically. I found it almost immediately, tucked beneath a stack of folded T-shirts. Not the fake test itself, but the undeniable proof. A receipt. The top of the paper read, prankpreg.com. My breath hitched. My eyes scanned the details. $24.99 for a realistic positive pregnancy test. Shipped to her work address, so I would not see the package. The order date was 5 days before her dramatic announcement. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that receipt. It was a physical, black and white manifestation of the deception. It was not a joke gone wrong. It was a plan. She planned this, bought a fake test, had it shipped secretly, and rehearsed that speech. That phrase, "Now you are trapped with me forever," was not a burst of excitement. It was the entire mission statement. Something cold and heavy settled deep in my chest. It was not anger yet, not the hot kind. It was a devastating realization of absolute betrayal. This was not a moment of weakness, this was calculated. This was premeditated. The Emma I thought I loved vanished in that instant. I pulled out my phone and took multiple photos of the receipt wide angles. A close-up of the website name, the date, the item description. My hands were perfectly steady now. The emotional shock had given way to pure, tactical resolve. I was no longer an emotional partner. I was a man gathering evidence to defend himself. I placed everything back exactly as I found it, smoothing the shirts down. When she came home from brunch, I was sitting on the couch, watching a baseball game, looking like nothing had happened. I smiled easily when she walked in. "Hey, babe, miss me?" she asked. "Always," I replied. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. With the receipt secured on my phone, the next move was no longer about discovery, but about execution. I had to end the lie, and I had to do it cleanly. I knew the final confrontation could not be rushed. I needed to see how far she was willing to take the deception. "Hey," I said, pausing the game, turning to face her. "I was thinking. I want to throw you a little celebration dinner. Nothing huge, but let us invite your parents and mine." Announce the pregnancy properly. Her face went through about 6 different emotions in 2 seconds. I saw surprise, a flash of fear, rapid calculation, followed by a forced, brittle happiness, and then more fear. She could handle the lie when it was just me, but the thought of managing the lie in front of 2 sets of skeptical parents, especially mine, clearly terrified her. "Oh," she said, pulling her coat off. Is it not too early? You are supposed to wait until 12 weeks to announce to everyone." "Nah. This is family," I replied easily, letting a small, false smile creep onto my face. "They can keep a secret. I already texted my mom. She is thrilled." I had not texted anyone, but I wanted to watch her squirm. Her reluctance was further proof. A genuinely pregnant woman who wanted commitment would jump at the chance for an immediate family announcement. "Can we just wait a bit?" she pressed, her tone suddenly pleading. "I am not ready for all that attention." "Sure, no rush," I conceded, putting the phone down. "But hey, let us at least get that doctor's appointment scheduled. I found an OBGYN with excellent reviews who has openings this week. I can call first thing tomorrow." She stiffened immediately. The fear was replaced by an aggressive defensiveness. "I told you I am not going to a doctor yet." "Why not?" I asked, keeping my voice mild and even, but letting my eyes bore into hers. "You told me you were pregnant. That is the time you see a doctor. It is the necessary next step. Why are you pushing this so hard? Do you not believe me?" The irony was thick enough to choke on. She was using my own line against me, but with genuine heat. The irony was thick enough to choke on. She was using my own line against me, but with genuine heat. I took a deliberate breath, preparing to end the charade, knowing this moment would shatter the rest of my year. I looked at her for a long, heavy moment. The silence stretched, filled only by the commentary from the muted baseball game. I gave her one final chance to tell the truth, to admit to the fear of commitment, or the insecurity. To admit that maybe she just wanted a family badly and panicked. But she just glared back, defiant in her lie. I reached for my phone, unlocked it, and pulled up the photo I had taken in her drawer. I turned the screen toward her. "I believe this?" I said. The color drained from her face, as if a plug had been pulled. It was a complete system failure. She looked less like a human being and more like a poorly rendered video game character who had just realized the level was unbeatable. "Where did you? That is, you went through my stuff," she stammered, the outrage in her voice thin and manufactured. Yes, I did, I confirmed, standing up. My body felt solid and grounded for the first time in days. Because my girlfriend told me. She was pregnant, told me I was trapped forever, and then spent 3 days refusing to see a doctor. Call it intuition. Or self-preservation. It is not what it looks like. It is a receipt for a fake pregnancy test from a prank website. Ordered 5 days ago, and shipped to your office address. I recited calmly. What else could it possibly look like? Emma? That is when the tears started. Full waterworks, instant tears, the kind that always worked on me before. Her shoulders shook, and she covered her face with her hands. I just wanted to see how you would react. She sobbed, her voice muffled and trembling. It was a test to see if you really loved me. I felt no sympathy, only profound disgust at the depths of her manipulation. A test. You faked a pregnancy to test me. Yes, she wailed, dropping her hands, tears tracking clean paths through her makeup. Because you never talk about our future. You never mention marriage. I needed to know if you were serious about us. So, you faked a pregnancy to test me. When you put it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. I confirmed, the words sharp. There is no way to put it that is not bad. You ordered a fake test. You planned this. You said I was trapped. This is not a joke gone wrong. This is calculated manipulation. I love you, John, she insisted, rushing toward me, trying to grab my arm. I just wanted to know you loved me too. I stepped back, putting distance between us. Pack your stuff. You have until Sunday to find somewhere else to stay. The tears stopped with remarkable speed. The immediate, tactical weeping ended because the tears had failed to achieve their objective. You cannot kick me out. She spat, her voice regaining its angry edge. I live here. You are not on the lease, I reminded her, crossing my arms. You do not pay rent. You have been here 5 months, and you are technically a long-term guest. I am giving you 3 days to leave, which is more than is legally required. This relationship is over. She stared at me, genuinely unable to comprehend that her plan had backfired so spectacularly.
This is insane.
Over a little prank. A little prank where you tried to trap me with a fake pregnancy and secure my future commitment. I finished for her. We are done, Emma. You are going to regret this, she said quietly, her eyes cold now. Maybe, I replied, grabbing my jacket. But I seriously doubt it. Sunday came and went without a suitcase packed, proving that Emma's manipulation had not ended with the tears. This was now a siege. She refused to acknowledge the breakup, choosing instead a state of complete, bizarre denial. She kept acting as if everything was normal. She made dinner, tried to cuddle me on the couch while we watched television, and asked me what I wanted to watch on the streaming service. She was ignoring the fact that I had just given her a legal notice to vacate. Choosing to live in an alternate reality where the conversation about the fake pregnancy receipt never happened. I slept on the sofa, my own sofa, in my own apartment. It was inconvenient and deeply frustrating, but I knew I had to maintain distance and keep my communication minimal. I kept repeating the same mantra whenever she tried to engage. You need to leave. This is over. Monday morning, I consulted my lawyer buddy from college, Marcus Harris. Marcus is a sharp, dry-witted corporate attorney who had seen enough of the ugly side of humanity to offer cynical but practical advice. We met for coffee downtown. I laid out the entire story from the trapped forever line to the prank website receipt. Marcus just whistled softly when I showed him the photo. Premeditated, John. That is the key word here. And you have the evidence. He confirmed my legal standing quickly. Since she was not on the lease, had no bills or mail in her name at the address, and had only been living there for 5 months. Legally, she was essentially a long-term guest. In this state, you have the right to revoke permission for her to stay and ask her to leave. If she refuses, you can involve the police for trespassing after you provide formal notice. That evening, I gave Emma a formal written notice. I wrote it out by hand, stating clearly that I was revoking her privilege to reside at the apartment, effective immediately, and that she had until the end of the day on Wednesday to vacate. I dated it, signed it, and made her sign a copy acknowledging receipt. I then took a photo of the signed document with a time stamp, adding another vital file to my growing folder of evidence. That is when the family campaign began. Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Emma's mother. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded, her voice high, pitched and laced with hysteria. "My daughter is devastated. She can barely eat. Mom, your daughter faked a pregnancy to trap me." I stated calmly, repeating the facts like a shield. "I have the receipt."
That is ridiculous.
"She would never do that. She is a good girl." "I am looking at photographic evidence right now, ma'am. I can send it to you if you would like." "I do not care what you think you have," she snapped, her tone hardening. "You are breaking her heart over nothing. She loves you. She lied to me in the most manipulative, premeditated way possible. We are done. You men are all the same," she accused, falling back on the tired trope. "The second things get real, you run. The second a woman asks for commitment, you bail." "Things did not get real, ma'am," I corrected her, my voice low and steady. "Things got fake. Literally a fake positive pregnancy test from the internet. Please respect my decision to end this relationship. And stop calling me." She hung up on me before I finished the sentence. On Wednesday, the escalation continued. Her father showed up at my door. He was a big guy, a construction worker type, and he tried to intimidate me, looming in my doorway, taking up all the light. "You are going to make this right with my daughter, sir," he said, his voice a low growl. "I am not going to make anything right, because your daughter did something wrong," I said, meeting his gaze levelly. I was nervous, but I refused to back down. She faked a pregnancy. That is manipulation. I am not interested in continuing a relationship with someone who does that. She made a mistake. He insisted, taking a threatening step closer. People make mistakes. You're going to destroy her life over one mistake. Ordering a fake pregnancy test online, waiting for it to ship, and then staging a reveal complete with rehearsed lines is not a mistake. I countered, my voice firm. That is premeditated deception. He leaned in close enough that I could smell his strong aftershave. You are going to regret treating her like this. Is that a threat? I asked. He did not answer, just glared at me for a long Heavy moment, then turned and left. I immediately logged the interaction, noting the time and the implicit threat, and sent the summary to Marcus. Thursday, she finally started packing, but not without one final, desperate manipulation attempt. She stood in the doorway of the bedroom, arms crossed, the look in her eyes frantic. "I am actually pregnant now," she said. I actually laughed. I could not help it. The sheer desperation of the lie, after everything, was comical. "No, you are not," I replied. "I am, for real this time. I took a real test this morning." "Great," I said, putting my hands in my pockets. "Go to a doctor and get a blood test. Bring me the results with a time stamp from this week. I will wait." "Why will you not just believe me?" she shouted. "Because you spent almost 2 weeks refusing to see a doctor for your fake pregnancy." I explained patiently, though I was exhausted by the performance. "You have destroyed any credibility you had. If you are actually pregnant, which I seriously doubt, a doctor can confirm it. Until then, I do not believe a word out of your mouth." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a framed picture on the wall crashed down and cracked the glass. The siege was intensifying. The final confrontation with Emma convinced me that the breakup would not be clean. Friday, I got a text from her best friend. "You are a monster. She has been crying for days. I hope you are happy with yourself." I replied with just the receipt photo. The image of the prankpreg.com receipt and the item description was the only response I needed to offer. I got a read receipt immediately, followed by complete silence. I knew then that the social war had begun, and that the single piece of evidence was the only ammunition I needed. But the social sniping was nothing compared to what happened next. Saturday morning, I got a call from a number I did not recognize. I answered, and a formal, neutral voice introduced himself as a detective from the local police department. My blood ran cold, fear flooding my system. "Sir, we have received a report regarding a domestic incident at your address," he said. "We would like you to come down to the station to answer some questions." "What kind of incident?" I managed to ask, my throat dry. I would rather discuss it in person. I called Marcus, my lawyer buddy, immediately. I summarized the police call in a rush, my voice tight with panic. "Calm down, John," Marcus said, his voice instantly grounding. "Do not say another word to them. I will meet you there in an hour. Do you still have that evidence folder on your computer?" "Yes. Everything. The receipt, the text from her friend, the log of her father's visit. Everything. Bring it all. We are going undocumented." Meeting Marcus at the station felt like stepping into a nightmare. It turned out Emma had filed a police report claiming I had been emotionally abusive and controlling throughout our relationship. Thankfully, she had not claimed anything physical. But she was trying to build a narrative, trying to establish herself as the victim before the full truth of her manipulation came out. It was a preemptive strike, and it made me feel sick to my stomach. Here is where being paranoid and meticulously documenting everything saved my life. Marcus was brilliant. He did not let me speak, handling the entire exchange with the detective. He presented the documents one by one. He showed the detective the receipt photos with the date and website, proving the pregnancy claim was a calculated deception. He included screenshots of text conversations where Emma had admitted the test was a test of our relationship. He showed the formal, written eviction notice, complete with her signature acknowledging receipt, which refuted any claim that I forced her out without notice. He even included the log of her father's visit and the implicit threat, and the recent text from her family member harassing me. The detective, a tired-looking man in his late 50s, looked through it all, looked at me, and sighed heavily. "Between us," the detective said quietly, leaning back in his chair, "this looks exactly like someone trying to get ahead of a breakup story. I have seen it before. Woman files first, hoping to establish herself as the victim before the truth comes out. Doubt." He handed the file back to Marcus. "There is nothing actionable here against your client, Mr. Harris. The evidence of premeditation and the counter documentation are overwhelming. But I would recommend documenting everything going forward and considering a protective order if the harassment continues." "So, I am not in trouble?" I asked, the relief starting to flood my system, making my knees weak. "No," he confirmed. "But I would be careful. People who file reports like this sometimes escalate when they do not get the result they want." I left the station feeling like I had aged 10 years in one morning, but profoundly grateful that I had trusted my instincts and kept the evidence. The legal battle had been averted, but I knew the fight was not over. The escalation had been confirmed. The siege was ongoing. The external pressure had only intensified, deepening my trust in my own evidence and judgment. I had faced the storm, and my foundation held firm. I thought the police station was the end of the legal threats, but Emma still had one more card to play: the financial shakedown. 2 weeks after she finally, sullenly moved out, I received a thick envelope in the mail. It had the letterhead of an actual attorney's office, crisp and formal. My heart sank, realizing the legal drama was far from over. The letter was a demand for $8,000 in relocation expenses. The argument was that I had forced her from her home without adequate notice and caused her significant financial hardship by suddenly making her leave. It was absurd. I had given her written notice. I was not her landlord, and the entire premise of her living there had been invalidated by her premeditated lie. I took the letter straight to Marcus. He read the letter, smirked, and then laughed out loud. "This is ridiculous," he said, tapping the letter with a long finger. "She was not on the lease, did not pay rent, and you gave her written notice, which we have documented. This, John, is a shakedown. Pure and simple. Someone, maybe her parents, maybe a friend, told her she might be able to get money out of you. And she is taking the shot. What do I do? We respond with the facts, and we include all your documentation," Marcus instructed, his eyes gleaming with professional malice. "And we make sure to mention that any continued harassment or baseless legal action may result in a counter suit from you for emotional distress and defamation. That usually ends things pretty quick." Marcus prepared the counter strike. His response letter was a masterpiece of legal clarity and factual brutality. It included the photograph of the fake pregnancy receipt, the police report outcome showing her false accusation was dismissed the documented harassment from her family, and a transcript of her mother's unhinged voicemail. It painted a clear picture of calculated deception, followed by systemic, retaliatory harassment. A week later, I got a call from Marcus. Victory, he announced, his voice satisfied. I just got off the phone with her lawyer. Very different tone this time. My client has decided not to pursue the matter further. That is it? I asked, completely stunned by the swiftness of the retreat. That is it? Marcus confirmed. Off the record. He said whatever she told him was not the full story, and he apologized for wasting my time. The paper trail you built was simply too much to fight. They realized they would not just lose. They would expose themselves to a genuine counter-suit. Small victory, John, but a victory nonetheless. I felt a surge of validation. My caution and my vigilance had paid off every single time. But Emma had one final act of entitlement left. Saturday afternoon. I was pulling into my apartment building's parking garage after running errands. I slowed the car, spotting a dark figure sitting on the hood of a familiar vehicle. It was Emma. I had already informed the building manager about the situation and shown him the police report. So she could no longer access the residential floors, but she was waiting for me in the garage. I pulled my car to a stop and put the window down. We need to talk, she said, standing up. No, we do not, I stated, my voice flat. My body felt solid, grounded, and utterly devoid of fear or pity. And you being here after everything that has happened is crossing a serious line. I just want to understand what went wrong, she pleaded, stepping toward my car. I deserve closure. You faked a pregnancy to trap me, I articulated, making sure every single word was clear and concise. That is what went wrong. I have the receipt. I have the police report. I have the lawyer's letter demanding money. She reverted instantly to the old script. It was a mistake. A moment of weakness. Why can you not forgive one mistake? Because it was not a mistake, I said. It was a plan. You researched websites. You ordered a fake test. You had it shipped to your work so I would not see. You waited for it to arrive. You rehearsed your announcement. You chose your words carefully, trapped forever. That is not a moment of weakness. That is weeks of calculated manipulation. Her face crumpled. I was scared of losing you. So you tried to trap me instead, I replied, shaking my head. That is not love, Emma. That is control. That is what abusers do. She started crying, the familiar, instant manipulation tactic. I do not have anywhere to go. My life is falling apart. Everything is your fault. You are living with your parents in a nice house, I said, my voice completely devoid of emotion. Your life is not falling apart. You are facing consequences for your actions for maybe the first time ever. You are so cold, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. You never really loved me, did you? I loved who I thought you were, I told her honestly. That person apparently does not exist. I loved who I thought you were, I told her honestly. That person apparently does not exist. I had loved her, but I loved my peace and my future more. And manipulation was a clear threat to both. I walked past her into the building, leaving her standing next to her car. She yelled after me, "You are going to regret this forever. You will never find anyone who loves you like I do." the building manager, saw the whole thing on the security camera. I added the incident, the date, and the verbal threat to the ever-growing file, cementing my cold detachment and firm resolve. Walking away from her in the parking garage was the final goodbye. But the noise of her actions echoed for weeks, forcing me to build legal armor. After the garage incident, I went straight back to Marcus. "She is escalating," I explained, recounting the parking lot ambush and her shouted threats. "I need this to end." We decided to file for a protective measure, not a full restraining order, which Marcus said would be difficult to get without documented physical threats, but a formal cease and desist through legal channels. This was essentially a final, binding legal notification that said, "Contact me again in any form, direct or indirect, and there will be legal consequences." It was the ultimate boundary, formalized by the court. It worked, mostly. She stopped contacting me directly. Her family stopped calling. The aggressive lawyer letters stopped for about 2 weeks, and I genuinely thought the battle had finally, mercifully ended. Then, I heard through the grapevine what was happening on her end. The story had gotten around. The fake pregnancy thing. I did not orchestrate this. I did not post anything on social media, nor did I send mass emails. I just told the truth to people who asked me directly what happened and showed them the evidence. The receipt, when they doubted me. Truth, I realized, has a way of traveling on its own, especially when the initial lie is so outrageous and easily documented. Apparently, someone, I still do not know who, and I am not losing sleep trying to figure it out, had shared the general outline of what happened in a private group chat that included some of her co-workers. It spread from there. Her reputation took a hit, not a career-ending life-destroying hit, but enough that people looked at her differently. Enough that the narrative she had been spinning about me, being the villain, did not stick. When she told her version of events, people were already skeptical. Her mother called me one last time. I should not have answered, but I did. "I hope you are happy," she hissed, her voice thick with resentment. "You have absolutely ruined her. She cannot show her face anywhere." "Mom, I did not ruin anyone," I replied, my voice calm and final. "Your daughter made a choice. She planned a deception, executed it, got caught, and is now facing the social consequences of that choice. I did not make her buy a fake pregnancy test. I did not make her try to trap me. All I did was refuse to accept being manipulated."
You could have handled it privately.
"You did not have to tell everyone." "I did handle it privately," I corrected her. "I only told the truth to people who asked me directly what happened. If the story spread beyond that, maybe your daughter should have thought about the consequences before she did something so easily shareable. Maybe she should have thought about how it would look when people found out. You are a cruel, heartless man. I hope you know that." She hung up, and that was the absolute last time I ever spoke to her family. About 5 weeks after the final showdown, I ran into Sarah Cooper, my childhood friend, at a coffee shop. Sarah had stayed neutral through everything, offering support to me without engaging in the drama. "Hey, man," she said, giving me a hug. "How are you holding up?" "Better," I admitted. "It has been a lot, but I am getting through it." Yeah, I bet. For what it is worth, I never doubted you. The whole thing was insane from the start. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. She is not doing great. If you care to know, Sarah continued gently. She is living with her parents, pretty isolated. Most of the old friend group does not really talk to her anymore. She is working some retail job because she quit her old position. I think she was embarrassed to go back there after the story got around. Part of me did feel bad hearing that. The part that had genuinely cared about her for 11 months, that remembered the good times, that remembered thinking she might be the one. That was the emotional beat. The moment where I felt true empathy for the person I thought I knew. But a much bigger, much stronger part of me recognized that this was the farce natural consequence of her actions. I did not do this to her. She did this to herself. I do not wish her ill, I said honestly. But I am also not going to lose sleep over it. Fair enough, Sarah replied. The external conflicts had reached their final, quiet resolution. All that was left was the internal cleanup. I had successfully defended my life, my reputation, and my sanity, moving firmly toward informed vulnerability. The storm had passed. The drama faded not with a bang, but a slow, quiet withdrawal. The work of putting my life back together was only just beginning. As for me, I am okay. Not great, not terrible, just okay. Which feels like significant progress. The trust issues are real. The realization that someone you allowed into your home and your life could orchestrate such a calculated, manipulative lie leaves a lasting impression. I am in no rush to date again. My therapist, yes, I started seeing one, and there is absolutely no shame in that. Says that feeling is normal after something like this. She says it takes time to recalibrate your instincts when someone deliberately manipulates them. The apartment feels different now, quieter. Thankfully. It no longer feels like a contested space, but mine again. I have rearranged some of the furniture, reclaiming the sight lines and the flow of the rooms. I bought some new art, just mine. Bright pieces that have no history with her. I donated the things she left behind, purging the space of her presence. It is a methodical process, this reclaiming, and it feels necessary for healing. My lawyer buddy, Marcus, told me to keep all the documentation for at least 7 years. Just in case anything resurfaces, like a surprise lawsuit or another police report. So, I have a password, protected folder on my computer labeled insurance that contains the entire saga, the receipt, the text messages, the unhinged voicemail transcripts, the lawyer letters, the police report outcome, everything. I sincerely hope I never need to open it again. Here is the final resolution and what I learned from it. The most valuable lesson is to guess, trust your gut says. When something feels wrong, it probably is. And when someone shows you who they really are, when they show you they are capable of calculated deception, of manipulation, of trying to trap you, believe them the first time. She tried to trap me with a lie, a fabricated fantasy of commitment. Instead, by refusing to back down and insisting on the truth, she trapped herself with the cold, hard facts. The saddest part of the entire affair is this: if Emma had just had an honest conversation with me about her fears, about wanting commitment, about feeling insecure in our relationship, we might have worked through it. I am not unreasonable. I was genuinely building toward a future with her. I was just moving slowly because of my past trauma. Maybe we would have gotten engaged eventually. Maybe we would have had kids for real when we were ready. But she did not choose honesty, vulnerability, or patience. She chose manipulation, coercion, and deceit. And that is not something I can build a life with. That is not something I am willing to risk a future on. So yeah, that is the story. Not the most dramatic ending in the world. There were no courtroom showdowns or massive public takedowns. There was just a guy who caught a lie, refused to accept being manipulated, weathered the relentless harassment that followed, and came out the other side intact, wiser, and more resolved than before. Sometimes that is all the victory you get in real life, and sometimes that is more than enough.